Hello, and thanks for returning to the Big Bid Theory. Bill Culhane here with Jim Ward as always. In this episode, we're talking about drugs. Well, more to it than that. We'll take a quick look at the drug and alcohol testing industry, of course, government procurement, all over that industry. And then Jim is going to delve into a related topic that has, of course, been all over the news. Jim, welcome back, kind sir. I just gave a hint. Why don't you give us more of a preview on what's to come in Crazy Bids?
Well, hello, Bill. How are we doing this evening? Well, I hope...
Doing very well, Jim. This is, again, with the drug and alcohol testing industry and your upcoming Crazy Bid, there's a little bit of synergy there. So what do you have for us?
Tonight we're going to go into that scary little green room that no one has talked about, the end of prohibition on marijuana, or as some people say, the legalization of marijuana for recreational use, and its impact on these governments that are having to enforce these new laws. And the numbers are going to blow your mind. I swear I'm not trying to be punny during any of this, but it's so hard not to be. It's just so funny.
You know, one thing, and anybody who's listened to the podcast since we started so many months ago, people understand we don't want to get political necessarily, but sometimes...
This podcast is not a rebel podcast.
It's not a rebel podcast. And
no, it's just like Bono. You know?
Sometimes the topics that we do come across, they, of course, are related to politics and what's going on. And I guess when you're talking government procurement, that's easy to say. And so anyway, more on the Crazy Bid in a moment. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we go across the landscape when it comes to researching and analyzing different industries.
Sea to shining sea.
That's what I like to say. As far as clients at BidPrime, it's literally every industry that you can mention, to include those companies, those businesses who provide drug and alcohol testing services. And anyway, with no further ado, looking at the most active U.S. regions right now, when it comes to drug testing specifically, California, keep that state in mind, but also the state of Texas, also Maryland and Ohio are very big in terms of putting out requests for drug testing. For drug supplies, and not necessarily the supplies that Jim is going to talk about in the Crazy Bid, but as far as drug supplies, there's California again, there's Texas again, Ohio, but then we also see New York jumps out in terms of the number of bid requests put out. And finally, alcohol breathalyzer requests. California, again, is one of the top U.S. regions, most active regions. There's Ohio again. There's New York. Our nation's capital is in the top 5. And South Carolina, the Palmetto State, is there as well. And
Palmetto State.
Yeah, and Jim, I looked at the last 12 months along with Lori, and we went into the BidPrime database. In the last 12 months, in those 3 areas, there have been almost 4,000 total requests that we found in the database. And the breakdown is kind of interesting. Close to about 75% plus or minus came from state and local agencies. In comparison, there are a little over 1,000 coming from federal entities with, and this is no surprise at all, the most active federal agency is the Department of Health and Human Services. You know, Lori, as we were going through the data, getting ready to put together a blog, Lori said, well, why don't we take a look at Canada as well? And Canada is not near the sheer numbers, which is normally the case in procurement compared to what is coming out of public sector entities in the United States. But Canadian federal government is by far in the lead. Really, it crosses all provinces. So the moral of the story there is if you're in the drug and alcohol testing industry, and you throw breathalyzers in there as well, it's a fertile ground out there in terms of the opportunities in the top 5 states. But literally every state in the U.S. is represented. As a matter of fact, drug testing, Hawaii, the islands are there near the top of the list as well, just to give you an idea on the geographies. If you want more information, get in contact with us because, again, the opportunities are there, and we'd love to share the information that we came across with you or representatives from your company. everyone knows by now that the state of Colorado has been all over the news in terms of state governments, marijuana. I was looking at the GOP debate the other night, and it came up. The legalization of marijuana was, of course, one of the discussion points during the debate. As many people that you hear, Jim, and I know you've been all over this, as many people you hear who are pro, there are that many who are against the legalization of marijuana. I'm not the expert. Actually,
not really.
Okay, the guys and gals in the suits were against. I guess some of the folks with the biggest megaphones may be against it. But anyway, I was just going to say you're the expert. I'm not. Take it away.
There are no experts in this. They've called it the Wild West, the way Colorado had been before this recent legislation. Here's welcome to Crazy Bids. Crazy Bid for this episode is actually a collective bill, all right, of bids for this new and emerging industry. Hold on. It's so weird because I'm so used to not really taking it seriously. So this is actually being called the fastest growing industry in the United States. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through some bullet points and statistics that are just going to be mind-boggling and informative, but mind-boggling too. Legal marijuana, it's the fastest growing industry in the U.S. If this trend continues and spreads to all 50 states, marijuana would be larger than the organic food industry, and this is according to the Huffington Post. That one kind of lost on me because they use the comparison, the organic food industry. How big is that? Do you have any idea? I mean,
right.
Is it? I don't know. I just thought that was a really baseless statistic. I'm sorry. That just happened to be my first one. It will improve. Researchers from the ArcView Group found that the U.S. legal market grew 74% in 2014, up to $2.7 billion, $2.7 billion, up from $1.5 billion in 2013. So right now there are 4 states, Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, and the District of Columbia, who have legalized the personal use of marijuana. So we're going to kind of focus on Colorado since they're the first to actually adopt the recreational aspects of it being made legal. The timeline for this, and this is all from the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, easy for me to say, or I'm serious, they put this, the RMHIDTA. So
that's a lot of letters.
It's a whole lot. It's like a first name these days. You don't need many vowels somehow, but I digress. So this they've been studying the effects on Colorado. So the timeline, 2006 to 2008, was early medical marijuana. Okay, 2009 to present was medical marijuana, and 2013 was when they had the recreational marijuana use. Some social statistics on this, and this is for the state of Colorado. In that period of time, 2013 they did it to the end of 2014. Homicides were down 52.9%. Sexual assaults were reduced by 13.6%. Robberies were down by 4.8%. Assaults were down by 3.7%. I know this is a short window of time that you're looking at, so you can't say that those statistics are directly correlated, but not bad numbers, right? If every city or every state could have those kind of numbers, I'm sure they would take them. So, Bill, I learned a ton doing the research on this. So these are the states that are coming up. I think this is kind of an order of the magnitude and likelihood of the legislation passing and to what extent. Massachusetts, Nevada, California, New York, Vermont, Minnesota, Connecticut, Maryland, Rhode Island, Maine, and Delaware, with Arizona, Missouri, and Florida thrown in the mix. Yes.
Jim, are there any timetables associated with those states?
But yeah, see, here's the thing, okay? You have to really, really think about this in the strictest sense of the word democratic, because it's broken down every state has its own gig, you know? I mean, they've got their own setup of how they're going to do it. So there's 50 answers to that question.
No, by X date.
Oh, no, not at all. But for example, like Massachusetts, why they're listed first, they're going to have legislation that is going to pass that will expunge the criminal record for a marijuana possession or something like that, that would that basically where you could put on a job interview, you've never been arrested, or job application, what have you. That's pretty wild. First off, don't you think? That's a lot of due diligence.
No doubt.
I mean, honestly, that's the thing that caught me by surprise the most, Bill, was that they were talking about expunging people. But this study right here I found fascinating too. So out of some of the big opponents of the end of Prohibition, it was weird. I didn't understand this before I started reading about it, but it was the pharmaceutical industry. And I would think they would be at the forefront because they kind of seem like made sense to me that they would be the ones to take the ball and run. But a recent study done by the Medical Marijuana Research Institute in Mesa surveyed responses from 367 state-qualified patients. This is kind of weird. The respondents were the majority male in their 40s and daily consumers of cannabis. Don't know who that could be. And then over 90% of those reported consuming cannabis to mitigate symptoms of nausea, headache, muscle spasms, fibromyalgia, stress, bowel distress, and chronic back pain. They were taking 90% less pills than they used to before they initiated cannabis therapy. That's great for those people, I think. You know what I mean? That they're not popping pills as much.
Go ahead. It's your topic. You say it first.
Oh, no, I was just
going to
say,
like
except for the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, they're going nuts, I'm sure. I mean, don't you agree? When they see that stat, they just cringe.
You wonder how many checks are going to be written, how many contributions are going to be made to various politicians to...
Well, even better, a lot of this goes down to the state level, or excuse me, to the local level on enforcing the laws. And my point to that, it's not to insinuate that there's any kind of corruption on any level, just that if there is any funny business, it's just a lot more players in the game. It's just a numbers thing. You know what I mean?
Answer this for me, Jim. Do you have any info on any actual related government bids when it comes to marijuana, medical marijuana, legalization thereof?
Yeah, it was. So I'll just read you some of the crazy bids right here. Alaska had this was over the last year. Okay, last 365 days. They had multiple marijuana control board meetings, and basically they had these town halls. It was an educational type thing, just kind of letting the communities know what to expect. And that ranged everything for helicopter services for eradication for marijuana projects in Oregon. So that one struck me as odd, that they're eradicating, I guess, the illegal crops so they can get their cut. I don't know. But the big one, though, Bill, is the marijuana registry databases. That's going on everywhere. Marijuana registry database is necessary basically in every state that it's going to be legalized.
Interesting. So, I know in this instance your plan is to put together a report that our listeners or whoever can actually read. So in addition to listening back to the podcast again, where can people go to read your report, and when will it be out?
Actually, it should be out when this podcast is out. So it'll be on Good Prime's blog.
What's going to be contained in the report?
Yeah, it'll have all of these statistics. They have some really neat infographics that will. Some of the numbers on the economic side will just blow your mind. And the neat thing about Colorado, their big surplus that they've received from the taxes, they're actually putting it towards the state's public school system. So $257 million in Colorado is going to their state's public school system that would not have gone there had they not ended the prohibition of marijuana there.
I hope it doesn't end up like the lottery. States were able to push through, state lotteries with the intention of the money going to education, and then over time that's either been minimized or rendered obsolete.
It probably will to some extent, but I think more than anything, Bill, the jobs it will create, and I can't find exactly where I have this, but there are more jobs right now in Colorado than at any other time since they have been keeping that statistic. There were more jobs in 2014, or excuse me, at this present time, than there have been in like 100 years almost of keeping that statistic.
Well, very good, Jim. And just to plug this real quickly, Jim's referring to his analysis being on the BidPrime blog. You can get there by going to bidprime.com/news/blog, or just go to bidprime.com.
Yeah, that's confusing.
Go to news, go to the news tab, and you'll be able to figure it out.
There we go.
Okay, well,
yes.
Very good, Jim. Look forward to it. Obviously, and we talk about the podcast being around for a while. Well, it is still relatively new in the big scheme of things. But as topics like this come across, we all remember the Burning Man. We did a follow-up on that. So I know Jim will be keeping his eye on this story as well.
Yeah.
And who knows what future podcasts will hold. I do want to let everybody know this is the last episode of the Big Bid Theory. Well, I guess I need to clarify. This is the last episode where we won't have a special guest join us. So stay tuned to @TheBigBidTheory on Twitter for more details in the coming days. But next time that Jim and I visit with you, we will have a guest alongside. We're excited about that.
And one other thing, Bill, one thing, excuse me, but just to throw this in, this is also the last Big Bid Theory that will not have the Big Bid Theory band. So actually next episode you will have live music from the Big Bid Theory band, or TBBT. Yes.
So basically the Tonight Show.
Kind of, well, it's kind of ska punk country, but it'll be neat.
Interesting. So in the next episode, again, we're in the process of lining up a guest who will look at an interesting aspect of government, procurement, Jim will be back with the next crazy bid, sure to be crazier than the previous. Jim, what is your parting shot for this episode?
I just wanted to say thanks to just one listener in particular. I really, really appreciate the feedback, and I just want to say thank you. And
Jim, whoa, time out. Jim, we have thousands of listeners. That could be anyone.
Tens of thousands, actually. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no. Well, I mean, only a fool, Bill, would say something like that after having, told like 15 people, females, to listen. I mean, and I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid. You know what I mean?
Touche. Point well
taken.
Yeah. Well, anyway, for you folks listening out there, mountains of thanks. We appreciate you sharing and following TBBT on iHeart. We'd be much indebted if you'd get the word out about the podcast to your friends, and heck, for that matter, maybe even people who aren't your friends. You can send emails to me at bculhane, BCULHANE @bidprime.com, or Jim Ward at jward@bidprime.com. TBBT's on Twitter and the Twitter handle is @TheBigBidTheory. Remember, you follow us, we follow you, bada boom, bada bing. Jim's Twitter is Jim Ward, 6. I'm contract_Hunter. For Jim Ward, our amazing staff at the Big Bid Theory, for everyone on either side of the marijuana debate, until next time, go Gunners, Barracudas, Tigers, and Bobcats, and we wish you all the best in, please excuse me, growing your business.
What? Oh. All right.
Panama Red, Panama Red, it's still your woman.